Hi Aries, welcome to your November 2019 Astro Update. It's Serena here, and I was kind of like chuckling to myself when I was compiling your transit list for November because I was like, okay, so we start the month and Aries is having Mercury retrograding in the 8th house. Have fun with that one. Basically, the 8th house is Scorpio's house. You're the one sign. I decided to do you next. I'm not going to lie, Aries, because I can just, put the transits. I don't even have to think because I've already got it, memorized what house belongs to what sign. And you have the template for the universal chart. So it's easier for me to go bing, bing, bing. You know what I mean? So Mercury goes retrograde on Halloween. And so, of course, on the first of the month, it's like in full on mode. And it's in the 8th house, which is kind of like the house of the shadow, the house of the rulers, Pluto and Mars, and what they represent, and what Scorpio, which is ruled by those two planets, represents. So everything that, has to do with shadow work, those parts of yourself that you disown because you don't like identifying with them. I do have to speak up, though, for Aries. As much as in my life, I've kind of had my fair share of run-ins with Aries, or at least been, I'm a Sag, so I'm fire. I'm supposed to get along with Aries. I'm a little bit kind of leery around Aries people because I've had my, run-ins with them, as I said, but I think that Aries people are very straightforward generally, and there's not a lot of angst in general. Now, if your moon is in Scorpio or Pisces, then forget what I just said, especially if it's in Scorpio. Then you are going to be more complicated. But in general, what you see is what you get with Aries, okay? And I'm kind of like slightly exaggerating about, run-ins with Aries, like, oh, wow, I've had all these bad experiences. I'm totally exaggerating, come to think of it, so please be nice to me. So that's kind of like, I still think that you're a human being, so you might still have things that you haven't really dealt with. The 8th house can be trauma. The 8th house is a house of death, and also of shared resources and sex, but especially with the shared resources and death, it's the house of inheritances. So if you've got something going on in that department, Mercury retrograde could be some kind of snafu with a probate issue, a will. Maybe there's like a second will that kind of comes into the forefront and you're like, where did this come from? Something to do with that area. You could be doing a lot of research on metaphysics for some reason. Oh, now that I think about it, I happen to notice that Neptune is in your 12th house and has been for probably at least the last 8 years or so. So a lot of Aries people may have been already getting into the spiritual life. And so, yeah, Mercury retrograde in the 8th house might be right up your alley. The sun is in this 8th house until the 22nd of the month. And so, by the way, November 22nd in American history, a lot of Americans know exactly what that date represents. It represents the assassination of JFK. And I was just a notion when he died. So, I was born a couple of years after that. And so when I, typed this out, I wrote 1122. Well, 1122 are both master numbers. So kind of interesting that was the date chosen for the assassination. I don't believe there are any accidents. And by the way, I was saying to myself, why are you going off on that tangent. But, actually when you have Mercury retrograde or direct in, transiting your 8th house, and you have the sun there, as well as other planets, you can be quite the conspiracy theorist. So there you go. Venus goes into Sag on the first day of the month. So if you are somebody listening in October, and I think a lot of you will be, Venus is currently in the 8th house. And so Venus in the 8th house can be about this money. Venus can be about money that is from shared resources. You and another person or other people, you could benefit from it, in other words. Venus can attract money. And when it goes into the 9th house on the first of the month, this is the sector that involves long-distance travel and involves, the higher mind and academic studies, so university work. If you have been trying to wrangle a financial aid package or, something with that could be when it comes in. And so you're able to enroll in college after all. Maybe it'll have to be for the next semester, but still, better late than never. If you were trying to get in, maybe you're trying to get in this fall and it never materialized. Venus in the 9th house can be falling in love with somebody from a different culture, different country. If you currently are traveling, that could definitely be connected to that. And so receiving some kind of profit from possible publication of some book or whatever. And the 9th house can be money made available for you, not only for higher education, but also for some kind of religious training that you belong to. I say like yoga teacher training, like combining going to some exotic location and also doing it. And yeah, something that allows you to travel, money that is made available for you to travel long distance. On the 12th, we have a full moon at 19 degrees of Taurus. And for you, Aries, the second house of earned income. And a full moon here could actually bring an increase in your finances, maybe through some kind of a promotion, because I do see here that Venus is going into the 10th house, into your 10th house of career later in the month. So there might be some kind of connection there. If you're retiring, then perhaps you're getting that, well, it's not a severance package. Maybe that's more if you're quitting. But that means, so either quitting or retiring, then you get a certain amount of money that's been kept in, as savings for you, and you get that lump sum. Or some kind of like, I can never think of the term, but it's in real estate, like if you get a, what is that called? Commission. So if you work on commission, if you're a salesperson, or you're somebody who is waiting for some kind of like bonus that you're meant to receive. One thing I have to say though, that full moons can be emotional, and in the second house, this can relate to self-esteem issues for whatever reason, and you could be thinking about kind of drawing those connections between your feelings and what has transpired in your life as it relates to, your recent experiences, and whether you feel like you're really engaged in self-love. On the 19th, Mars goes into Scorpio, and Mars is your ruler. So whenever Mars goes into a new sign or has some kind of special transit, that's going to really be particularly important for you. And this is going to be in that 8th house. Well, Mars rules the 8th house along with Pluto in the sign of Scorpio. So there's a certain ferocity of Mars in the 8th, a ruthlessness, a desire to kind of like tear off any kind of fake, superficial, surface level behaviors. You know, the 8th and the 12th houses are both associated with addiction. I think the 8th house is associated with it in the form of obsessions, compulsive behavior, maybe, in a way, because the 8th house can be obsessions. And I feel like you're going to battle these. You're going to tackle these full on. And this is like a very interesting place for Mars. This is very sexual energy too, because Mars is sex drive and the 8th house can be sex. Now I can't believe I never made the connection with the fact that it is ruled by Mars. So that's probably one of the main reasons, if not the reason. But the 8th house is spiritual sex. So who knows? Maybe there will be a collision, in a sense, between the carnal desires and the desires to merge with another person for spiritual reasons. And how do these things clash? I don't know. That's just something that came to me. When Mars is in the 8th house, be very deliberate. Do not be very mindful of your actions. And this house carries a lot of intensity with it. So every action that you undertake, you want to make sure that it's not coming from lower emotions like vengefulness and just plain out pure unadulterated anger. But because sometimes people, when they're vengeful, they can convince themselves that they're actually balancing the scales of universal law. And I could totally see, I could totally see a Scorpio person doing that, forgetting that I was talking about you. But you know what? You are an honorary Scorpio person at this time, because your sun being in the 8th house gives you that scorpionic vibe. And so if anything happens that kind of really brings up your emotions, you have to think first and act later. This is a water house, so emotions come to the forefront. On the 20th, the next day, Mercury goes direct in that 8th house, and it's not to say that your deep diving is over, far from it. It just means that you may be ready to kind of share what you have learned with others. The esoteric secrets of the universe, for instance. But by the way, I mean, Mercury can be contracts, 8th house, if there are some things related to any kind of will, probate issues. They may get resolved at this time when the smoke is cleared and Mercury is no longer haywire. On the 25th, Venus goes into Capricorn in the 10th house, and this is good for making a good impression on people that are your superiors. So those in higher up positions, this is a great transit for that. This can bring money, like a raise that comes from your career. It just puts a lot of harmony into your career house. It gives you a good reputation. It makes you popular. On the 26th, there's a new moon at 4 degrees of Sag. So Sag is a fellow fire sign. There's that trining energy that is so easy flowing. in that ninth house of long distance travel. So you have the new moon, and it's like pointing to a new direction, a new day. Maybe there are some colleges where you enroll in November for whatever reason. Maybe it's like, continuous enrollment. This could be a new trip that you're taking. Some new beginnings that connect with the higher mind, philosophy / spirituality, and there may be some new developments in these areas. On the 27th, the next day, Neptune goes direct, and this is in the 12th house. So you have perhaps for several years now been influenced by having Neptune in its own sign, in its own house, and that can make for a very consistent influence where it relates to your dream life. Maybe you've become a hypnotist or somebody who interprets dreams. Maybe, I could see, like, even with the 8th house, a counselor, something along those lines. But anything that is connected to deep diving, with the 8th house, I should have mentioned that psychology is definitely featured, and trying to find out how people tick. Well, the 12th house is about repressed memories, the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and how that affects us is kind of like what psychology is about, I'd like to think, but also in the spiritual world, because it can affect us from lifetime to lifetime. It's not just about psychoanalysis. To me, is primarily dealing with your consciousness at this time in this particular incarnation, not like kind of connecting the dots between different lifetimes. And so the 12th house is more about that and explorations therein. And now it's Neptune is direct, and on that date, that's the last planet besides Uranus that has been retrograde. So there are a lot of green lights going into the month of December. And the other thing to note, to look forward to, is that you're going to have a solar eclipse in your 10th house of career on either Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. I know in England they call it Boxing Day. And I always, I didn't know, it meant actual boxes. I thought it was like Muhammad Ali or something. I don't know if I don't know, maybe I'm trying to be cute here, but maybe Canada has that too. But anyway, that's going to be very good for career matters to go into 2020. But that's coming up in December. And so Neptune direct can also be more kind of idealism coming back into your life. While Neptune was retrograde, it may have kind of like exposed some of the fears that you've had, or some of the uncomfortable things that you feel like may be obstacles in your path, and you really realize them. And now maybe you're more blissfully, unaware. No, I'm kind of just joking. It's important sometimes, though, to move forward and not always just be analyzing and, rehashing things. So I'm glad that you're seeing forward movement in this department as well. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personal reading, I'd love to work with you. I actually have a new offering. Just created it the other day, but I've been thinking about it for a while. And I call it the whole enchilada, and I realize I got that from Dr. Wayne Dyer during one of his PBS fun, drives, or whatever you call it. Yeah, the drives for the network. And he called his package the whole enchilada. But it's basically the full-length natal chart with the full-length tarot reading, and a special tarot reading that uses the 12 houses, and picking a card for each house, and or more if I deem fit. But it's a full-length reading of that too, for a special introductory price. And so you can check out that and my other offerings at rainamoonastrology.com, and the link is below. It's so funny that I'm doing this type of work, because that, talking like that, and kind of like, having the words come together like that, I feel like I did that quite a bit in the past, and I've been pleasantly surprised at not doing that too often. So that was kind of funny that I happened to do that there. But I would love to work with you if you would be interested. I'm always looking for new clients, and I'm so appreciative of the people that keep coming back to me. I get a fair number of repeat clients, so I'm happy about that. But I do wish to kind of widen my scope by having more new people come into the mix. So in any case, I wish you a great November. Take care. Bye.